Welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the stories, experience, and challenges that shape us into who we have become today. Today's guest is Jamie Sylvian, founder of Executive Nomad and author of Executive Nomad Operating System. For over 3 decades, it means as work at executive levels across global organizations by building balanced careers, advising leaders, and helping experienced professionals turn their expertise into independence location flexible businesses. It's really a pleasure having you on the show, Jamie.
My pleasure to be here, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, Jamie, what were some of the experience or challenges that shape you into who you have become today?
So, it's a great question. I have been, there's digital nomads has been a thing for the last few years, as you know, people just working off their laptops and so on. And I've been doing that since before most of those were born. So I first learnt about that possibility to work remotely, not need an office, to sort of make the world your office. Back in the late 90s, when I was very young, I found a book in an office that I was working in, and it was a book by a guy called W.G. Hill, and it was called PT, Perpetual Traveller, and it was the precursor to today's digital nomads. And it was about how you could actually set up a company in one country while you live in another country. And there was a whole framework that he did. Now, none of that works anymore. You probably end up in prison if you try to do all of that stuff now. But it kind of gave me the thought. At the time, I was working in a corporate role in London. And I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed the challenge of the things that we do. And we were doing. I was a young guy, so I had lots of energy, and I was doing all of that, excited to get ahead. But my personality didn't really allow me to sort of be structured within the corporate shield, if you like, with a boss and your team around you and all of that stuff. And I found that very difficult. It just didn't sit with me. So I realized, having read that book, that what I would be good at, because I was just good at strategy, just as a kind of not something I'd learned. I just kind of had that kind of a mindset. I decided that I would try and mix the two. So I would become that nomad, what everyone would call a digital nomad these days, but also maintain my executive level, also still do the level of work that I was aspiring to. And so I started to do that. I first moved off to Spain because it wasn't so far from London. If I ran out of money, I could always find my way back, live with my parents again. And I just, over time, Errol, I just kind of built up that experience. I started to work with companies. I learned how a virtual office address in London and a telephone number in London means you don't have to be in London, but you still get the business and you still charge London rates. I learned how to form a company that wasn't in the UK, and therefore I had tax benefits by operating outside of the UK, which was kind of my main base at the time. So all of these things led me to start that career, to start working for clients who were in the UK, but I wasn't. And then I realized I couldn't work for clients who were anywhere, because I'm anywhere. And remember, we didn't have all the technology like you and I sitting here on, in completely different continents, Aaron.
Yeah.
And it's like we're sitting in the same room. That none of that existed. Back then I was using a fax machine. Most of your listeners won't even know what a fax machine is, but that's what we were using. But gradually technology started to catch up, the internet and emails and all the rest of it. It all started to come in very quickly. And so I started to become able to just be wherever I wanted to be. So I ended up living in Chiang Mai in Thailand, but working with a client in Gibraltar, just near Spain. And then I kind of widened my experiences, and I started to work on strategy. I was in communication, so I'd help marketing companies to do what they do. So then I started to become a coach to some of the companies that I'd worked with. So I was bringing their younger workers who didn't have the experience that I had. I would train them and coach them and bring them up, all online, all in this environment that you and I are sitting in today. And then I found that I would also be offered the opportunity. They'd say, well, this one guy, we want him to be a manager, but he needs a bit more help. So I became a mentor. I actually mentored these people going up through the company, and the value that I brought to the situation, to the table, was I've simply done it before. So there is a value there of just being older, which is you never thought you'd get to say that, but there is a value there. And so I would be in one country while my company is registered in another country, dealing with clients in completely another country. And so that meant for the last 3 decades, I've lived in 13 countries. I've traveled all over the world. I've Just spent the winter in Malta because it was cold where I'm based. I'm based in either in Greece or in Bulgaria, depending on the time of year. And as long as I have my laptop, as long as I have my good camera and good audio so that you and I have conversations, that's really important, because when you're not sitting in an office with somebody, you've still got to make that first impression. It used to be a suit and tie and a flashy watch. Now it's just how you look when you sit when you sit this. So I focused on that. I focused on making my backdrop nice, my office nice. I focused on building out that part of the business, and that's really what it takes. So as I say, now in the last year I was in 9 countries. I traveled all over the place. Last year was lovely. But soon I rent myself an Airbnb somewhere. The very first question is not how comfortable is the bed or how near is the restaurant. The first question is, what's the Wi-Fi like? I have a lot of video calls that I do. That's number one. But the difference between an executive nomad and a digital nomad, there's obviously overlaps. Of course there are. This is about travel and freedom and so on. The difference is that I don't look for the cheapest Wi-Fi or the cheapest Airbnb or the cheapest place to stay. That's young. I would have done the same when I was their age, but younger people do that because they have to. As an executive nomad, I'm still working at boardroom level with my clients. And so, you're charging those kind of fees, let's say professional fees. So when I land in a place like Malta, which I've just spent the winter in, it's a nice lifestyle. You can have a better style of place to stay, still nice restaurants and all that. So it's like being a digital nomad, but kind of an elevated level.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for telling me, sharing a whole lot of this. And it just speaks volumes to just getting started. It's been castigating from one particular discipline to another, on and on and on. They just keep more and at the end of the day, the experience get to pay a whole lot of dues. Yeah, really amazing. So you have actually more work with $1 billion companies, government initiative, and senior leaders across the world. What did those boardroom experience teach you about leadership and power dynamics?
About leadership, very often the leader in the room is not the leader in the room. The leader in the room is the quiet guy who sits in the corner, who's been there. I've done work now with companies, and they're all 20 years younger than me, and you're sitting in the room and they're all excited. Things are happening, but the wisdom, the leadership in the room is the experience that you bring to this, because all of a sudden you can say, well, hold on a second, guys, that sounds great, but something I worked on 10 years ago had exactly the same dynamics as to what we're discussing now, and it all went horribly wrong, and here's why. Just being able to say that, Arrow, could save a startup company. And remember, they're being funded by private equity who are all breathing down their necks to make a profit and all of this stuff. Just being able to be that adult in the room through pattern recognition, through saying, I know this is a problem that you've got. You haven't seen it yet, but I saw it 10 years ago, and this is what happened. This is how we sidestep that. This is how we go around that, and we don't have the problem. That's what, to me, what very often leadership is. And also not needing to be the leader. I don't have that ego that I want to be seen as the leader. I'm very comfortable for somebody else to take that role. Great, and very often it's a founder of a company and so on, and they're coming up their dynamics as a leader. They're still learning stuff. I've also mentored a girl who had a startup in tech space. She was 22.
Ooh.
Smart as you like. What she had, and she could, build code and all the rest of it like I could never do. But what she can do and what she can't do is two very different things. So my role was to mentor her to say, look, what about this? Don't go this way, because that way is going to be better. I've seen this before. So that all, in terms of leadership, comes back to pattern recognition, and also from the leadership from them is actually being able to listen. For them to be able to listen to somebody who's got that experience. And boardroom dynamics, how long have we got? It's such a fascinating thing. It's so ego driven so often. And I've been, I walked out of a big company years and years ago because I went into the boardroom and we'd worked out a strategy, we'd worked out a plan, got in there, and the two guys that were on my side when we were in the cafe around the corner all of a sudden realized that the dynamics were changing within that boardroom, and all of a sudden I was on my own, and I thought, nobody's backing me up. So I saw those dynamics. But what being an executive nomad, and this is really important, this is so much a part of it. I do enjoy those dynamics. I do enjoy that boardroom stuff. I do enjoy working at that level because that's where decisions are made and, fortunes are won and lost. But what I really like is going in, doing what I do, offering my experience, my pattern recognition, and then just stepping away. Just step outside and leave all the office politics over there. And I just walk away. I don't care what their office politics are. Not everybody can do that. Some people want to dive in and get scrappy and have be involved in it all. Not me. I'll go in. I'll get my stuff done, and then I'll put my invoice in and I'll walk away and I'll jump on a plane if I'm actually in the room with them. If I'm much more these days, nearly always on camera. I do what I do. The boardroom politics are all theirs now. Don't need it.
Yeah, amazing. I think this is really, really lovely. And to really speak a whole lot of volumes, being that you have dedicated your life to this particular work, and now you could actually more like see 3 to 4 steps ahead for anyone could actually get to perceive it or into. You have lived it, and you have actually become it, being that has been part of you for a whole lot of time. And it's really, really amazing and speak a whole lot of volumes, which really shows that, a whole lot of things to be learning here. Also, you talk about our framework. Rewire, repackaging, repurpose. Can you walk us through what it means and how someone can actually get started applying it?
Absolutely. So before I give you the backstory first, because it didn't exist a few years ago. So I was in Greece and I was working on a deal with a guy in Texas. No, I beg your pardon. The guy was in New York, but the deal was in Texas. So it was a very global deal. Because of the way I work, if I can, I won't always do video. Sometimes I'll do just an audio call. So I was sitting in a cafe in a place called Nios Mamaras in Greece. Beautiful harbour town, sitting in a cafe looking out to the boats bobbing up and down. And I was on the phone, I had my notes and I was chatting. And there was a guy, I didn't even notice the guy, him and his wife were sitting behind me. And they were British. And after I'd finished the call, one of them said to me, I think it was the guy that said to me, he said, you look busy. It's interesting that you're working here. Do you live here? I said, no, I'm just here for a month or so. I started to explain what I did. And it turns out that his name was Peter. He was 54. He was from the logistics space and he had been laid off. He'd been made redundant, been pushed out of the job because there was an acquisition. And it was interesting because it was the first time I had that conversation. He said, he said, I'm not worried about money, but I don't know what to do now. I know it's going to be difficult to get back into a role, into a similar level of role. He was in the top level management, and I just said, well, why don't you just do it for yourself? And he said, I'd love to be sitting in a cafe in the sunshine, doing this. It's probably raining in England. Yeah. And I said, well, do it for yourself. And so as we were chatting, I worked out that getting back to your question, if I helped him to rewire, repackage and repurpose him and what he did, then he could do exactly what I do. He could work out how to make his business portable, borderless, international, global. So rewiring it's a really nice strategy because it allows somebody with that level of experience, somebody's reached sort of management level, Arrow. All they need to do to sort of make this lifestyle work is think back into their career and work out some wins, some losses and some lessons that they've got in their career. And I'll give you an example, going back to Peter, the guy I met. He was a logistics manager, high-level logistics manager, but the company was taken over by a competitor and somebody else from the other company came in to take his job. Right? But what he realized was that as this thing was going on, he realized that when a bigger company takes over a smaller company, and it doesn't matter what sector it is, when it takes over, there's contractual issues because that company does very similar to that company. Now you've got all these contracts that may go against each other, they may overlap each other, etc. So that's one thing. You can become, if you take that value out there, if you know how to work your way through that, how to manage the contracts, how to review them, how to analyze them, how to make sure that the company taking over the other business is doing it right. You've got a consulting and coaching business. You just need to know that you've got it. And that's something difficult for people coming out of corporate, is that they just do this stuff as part of their job. What I do in my sessions is I bring them out and I say, okay, but what did you do then? By the end of an hour, I've usually worked out 3 or 4 things that I said, that's a consulting business right there. So once you've got in mind that you're a logistics consultant in an acquisitions, what was he called? A logistics acquisition consultant. It's a bit boring, to be honest. It's a bit of a boring name. So repackaging, and you sound like every other consultant or coach in the world, right? Repackaging is where I said, right, now you take that stuff that you've just pulled out of your corporate career, and now we're going to repackage it. We're going to make it into an actual service that you can then offer out to the marketplace. So he became the logistics site guy. So his job, and he now he was a consultant, but he was a logistics site guy, and the logistics site guy was the person who went into acquisitions and worked on all the documentation and saved the company a lot of money, because these things just drag on in a big corporation. He went in very, very focused, went in to do one job, get in there, get all of the contracts, all of the stuff that needs analysis. Don't charge by the hour, don't charge by the day, charge by the project, because if you charge by the day, you want to stay there for as long as you possibly can. That doesn't help. If you start by the project, even if you're finished in 2 days or 5 days or whatever, you still get paid the same money. So that's really important. So that's repackaging. So you've taken what your experience is, you've repackaged them into something that you can actually sell, that people will recognize as valuable. And then you sit back after you've had a few contracts go through and a few deals, and you repurpose it. And repurposing it is this. The situation of that mergers and acquisitions that he had was in the logistics space, but I absolute guarantee similar things happen in medical, in retail, in hospitality, in banking, in whatever. The difference is the wrapper. So he was the logistics freight site guy in the first one. Find out who else needs this, and then repurpose everything you've got. The actual work you do is the same, but you've got to repurpose it into something that's of value to a medical supplies company taking over a medical supplies company. Do you see what I mean? So then he's repurposed it. Now he has everything that he needs to expand his market. Now he's not in one sector, he's in two, then he's in three, then he's in four. And then you can also, by doing that, you can go borderless. You don't have to deal with companies just in your own country. You go borderless. All of a sudden, I'm in Greece working with a company in Texas with a client in Washington State, etc. So that's the framework that I teach. That's in the Executive Nomad Operating System.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you so much
thing.
For this particular robust explanation you just gave. Rewrite, check out your win, your losses, and those particular lessons you learned during the period while you were there. Repackaging, take those experiences into an actual service and repurpose, more like sitting back and getting to look deeply again. What other particular industries get to kind of make use of this particular service that's an offering? Yeah, it's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So with the rise of technology and AI, how do you see the future of executive consulting, coaching, and advisory and advice?
I get that question twice a day. I think done right, it's brilliant. Something that so just for imagine a moment, I'm consulting to your business, right?
Yeah.
Something that used to take me 5 days to work on now takes me 2 hours, because I know how to use. I taught myself how to use AI. Also, I'm not charging by the day. That's a problem if I'm charging by the day, because I've just finished it in half a day when it used to take 5 days, right? I've just lost $10,000 or whatever it is. Whereas I charge by my results. I say, this is your problem. If I fix your problem, it's this. So I worked on a problem or a challenge for a client a couple of years ago that saved them $2 million, $2.4 million. They had to pay $100,000 for that. They were absolutely delighted. It took me 2 months to do it. That exact same job now would take me about 4 days in it because I use AI.
Yeah.
Now it's because I learned AI. When I saw it coming, I thought, my word, we're all going to be walking the streets with no food if we're not careful. So I've got to learn how to do this thing. But honestly, used properly, it will absolutely shoot consulting businesses into the stratosphere. Just a final example on that. So I used to do for this business, I used to do a session for 90 minutes, and it was to talk to the person thinking of becoming a consultant. And I would start going into their history and their work history and working out what they could do. That exact same process now, because I trained an AI to do it, just because I wanted to see if it would work, Ari, to be honest, it takes them about 3 minutes. So I can no longer charge for that. So they can go into, if people who register for my audio training, which is free, can use that software, that app that I built, to actually determine what they could be. What they put in their wins, losses and lessons, and the system, the AI is trained on my experiences, and it says, based on this, and this, you could be a consultant in the agricultural space or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what used to take 90 minutes and I could charge good money for, the AI does it so far. But now, but that works for me because what it did do, what I was charging for, and I had to charge for my time, was really to get people to the starting point of what I do. Now they can get to the starting point of what I do, and without even ever speaking to me, they can say, "Oh, I could become a strategic consultant in, as I said, in agriculture or biotech or anything." Then when I'm speaking to them, they now know they have a direction. So I'm a long way ahead. So I actually work with more clients because they feel that they've got something that they can actually do. They feel that they've got a direction. So I believe, as they say, AI may rise up and kill us all one day, but until then, it writes my emails.
Yeah, amazing. I think this is really lovely, being that you just make reference of the job that you got to kind of do in time past for 2 months. You could basically more like handle it for 4 days now, and think it just speaks volumes too. Yeah, AI is actually more like coming around to make a whole lot of job easier, and being an early adopter of it, it's a win-win. Being that at time is going to come into being, even if you know how to handle the skills you handle, without you leveraging on AI, it just appear that AI might definitely take out a job. In that our client might not want to wait for 2 months for you to get the outcome. They want to just, well, like if you can do it for 4 days, the better it is, being that you now become the key person of influence in that particular feed, and a whole lot of persons get to come up to you, and you easily get it done, which make it easier for you, and you make a whole lot compared to where you actually more like spending of 2 months in actually getting that particular route done. It's really amazing, and it just big volumes. Getting in fast and adopting the AI model that's been.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. It doesn't worry me a bit. Who knows in 6 months' time or a year's time? As I said, there may be 2 robots sitting here. We're not that far away from it, right? Yeah. But it doesn't bother me. I think it's really exciting. I think it's going to make life a lot easier. Not for everyone. Some people are going to have their challenges, but it's coming whatever way you look at it. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jimmy. Also, for someone listening now who feel stuck in their corporate structure but dreams of designing more independent career, what first step will you advise them to take?
So the first thing to say about that is that you don't have to do this and travel the world. You can do this and stay in your front room exactly where you are now.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's flexibility and it's freedom. I love to travel, therefore it become a big part of my life. But stepping out of corporate can be tough because you've got a shield. You've always got. If you're in corporate and you need an advertisement written, you go to the guy down the corridor, right? If you need some accounting done, you go to the guy downstairs. Whereas when you leave corporate and you become an entrepreneur, you become a solopreneur, there's no one there. But now, going back to the other part, AI now does it all in minutes anyway. It's much better. But you've got to kind of get your mindset. You've got to get in the mindset that this is something that you want to do and you want to do it on your own. But the good thing is, especially with my framework, is that you don't have to leave corporate today and say, that's it, I'm an executive nomad. What you can do is you can spend the next 3, 6, 9 months working on the 2 of them together and building up that side of things that you do. And there's lots of ways that I teach on how to do that without risking your paycheck, without risking your salary. And then at some point you will say, okay, this now works. I'm now coaching, I'm now mentoring, and I've got enough money to go coming in each month to actually go and do this. And leave the corporate world. Making the decision is always the toughest. It's the thing. It's a conversation I have with absolutely everybody, and these are people who are high levels. Lots of people I work at very, very high level in large corporates, and they are merciless leaders when they're in the corporate environment. But take them out of the corporate environment, put them in front of me, who's lived this life for 3 decades, and they're like little kittens.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much, Jamie. So, Jamie, compared to where you first started and looking back now, what does success mean to you?
Success is that's actually easy to answer. Success is that I work with who I like to work with. I don't have to say, yes, I'll take that because I need the money. I've got a reputation in the business. I'm now focused nearly entirely on executive nomad and training other people to do what I do. And that's lovely because honestly, as I said, until I met that guy in Greece, I didn't even know it was a thing. It was just what Jamie did. So spending the time writing the book, and I went off to Malta to write the book over the winter. That's a lovely lifestyle. You just decide, where am I going to go? I sat at home one night and I said, where am I going to go for the winter? Because I've got a book to write. And that level of freedom, that success, I don't need cars. I don't need an expensive car. I don't need expensive homes. That's never been anything that it's never been a measure of success to me. Maybe because the people that I worked with at corporate level, that's all they base their success on. They'll go into that horrible job every day because they've got to pay for the damn car. Whereas I was just travel light. When I go off to a place like Malta, I would go along and I'd rent myself a house that was comfortable for me, and that's all I need. Then I'd start early, I'd finish by midday or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The day's mine. I go off and look around one of the most culturally rich countries in the world, which Malta is, and historical. It's just a fascinating place. But next week I'll be in Greece doing the same thing. I'll still be doing podcasts. I'll still be meeting people like you. I'll still be working with my community, but I'll just be in a completely different place from me. My business is still running. The earnings are still being made. The money's still being made. I'm following the weather because I need it to be a bit warm. I'm in a ski resort right now, which is lovely, but a bit cold. That's what freedom is to me, or success is to me. Not cars and houses at all. Ever. It never has been.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jamie. It has really been amazing having this conversation. Also, Jamie, for my audience who want to reach out to you, who want to connect with you, how can they reach out to you, and where's the best platform?
Very easy. ExecutiveNomad.com.
Amazing.
Everything that they need there. My book, my audio, they can meet me online. I run workshops, free workshops in this environment. And when people can just tune in and listen, I also, it will be released by the time this goes live, it will be released. I'm working on a pure audio training program. Just click one button and you listen, and it's me explaining how Rewire works, Repackage works, how corporate structure works to reduce your taxes, and all of the stuff that I've learned over 30 years is going to be in that free audio training, all on executivenomad.com.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Your story just reminds us that reinvention is always possible. Our experience, knowledge, and hard-earned lessons can become powerful assets when we learn how to package and share them intentionally. Thank you for listening to the Making of Me podcasts, and where we explore the experience that shape life and lessons that help us become who we're meant to be. It's really a pleasure once again having you on the show, Jimmy.
It was a pleasure for me too, Aaron. Thank you.